Okay, evaluating my first set of tires that I installed with Tubliss, the Tubliss system versus an inner tube. So this is the rear tire, Maxxis Desert IT, after a season and a half. Definitely got, in my opinion, better tire tread out of it than I did with a tube, being able to run lower pressures, definitely less wheel spin, better traction. Zero flats on the rear, had no issues with punctures for the life of that tire. They're a really tough tire. This is the front tire, an M59 Bridgestone, and I did have one flat with this tire. It was a second ride on the new tire, and I had a puncture, got a sharp rock or a stick or something, went right through it. Punctured it, had a flat. I did happen to have the tire patch repair, the repair kit, the plugs, and the tool. So got out the tool, inserted a new plug, and fixed the tire, no issues. Took about 10 minutes. This is the plug. You can see it's pretty mashed up. I didn't have any cutters or blade or anything to trim it, so I just left the whole thing, or quite a bit of it, exposed, and didn't seem to cause any issues, no further leaks, and finished off the life of the tire. Looking at the inside of the tire, you can see where the plug came through, and yeah, did a great job. Managed to plug the leak, didn't even have a slow leak afterwards, and everything was great. So my experience on the first set of tires with Tubliss was quite positive. Did have a flat in the front, but fixed it in a few minutes versus having to take the wheel off and take out the tube. For a replacement front tire, this time I went with a different option. I bought a spare rim assembly with a rotor, complete with a rotor and everything, so I can swap back and forth. So because of the mud we have around here, I went with a Bridgestone M101 for mud. As you can see, it's got really tall, widely spaced knobs, and works really well in the heavy mud. Cleans the tire out, generally works quite well in the heavy mud. So that's my front tire for mud, and the other wheel has another Bridgestone M59 on it, or will have shortly when I mount the new tire. And so I'll be able to switch back and forth depending on riding conditions on the front tire. So I've ridden one race with this, and the front tire worked fine, no flats, maintains pressure. So with the Tubliss, so far so good. For the second rear tire, I decided to try something different. A friend of mine has been using the IRC tire. I think his is a 19-inch wheel, and he's using an IB5, I believe it is. I'm using a Vulcan Enduro VE33. He was getting amazing traction with that tire, so I thought I'd give it a try. And same result. Traction's outstanding. Just almost hard to get stuck with this tire. Really good traction. I was running it at about 6 pounds on the first race, and during the race, it was an hour and 45 minutes, the plus 40 class. I got a flat on the first lap, so about 15 minutes into the race, I got a flat in the rear, and had to complete the race on the flat tire. Now, because of the Tubliss, kept the tire on the bead. In fact, wasn't even that noticeable that the tire was flat. So not a big deal as far as performance went, but really beat the hell out of the tire. Having run flat, it's a slow course. Very seldom, I think the highest gear I ever got into during the course was fourth. So it was relatively slow, but the tire still took a real beating. So when I finished the race, got home, took a look at the tire, found I had a hole in it. So had a puncture. I don't know if it was a sharp rock or a stick, what the case may be, but at any rate, had a hole in it, so I patched it. So the hole's over here. You can see the plug on the tire, and that was my leak. So I plugged it. When, again, very straightforward, managed to plug it in just a few minutes, inflated the tire, but I found in about 40 minutes the tire was flat. So I started looking more closely, and unfortunately I found I had 3 pinches in the bead on the tire. So basically had 3 leaks right here between the rim and the tire bead due to pinch flats. So there's a question: can you repair a pinch flat on a tire, or a sidewall or a bead repair on a tire? And of course, if it's a road-going tire, the answer is no, because of the speed, I guess, and everything. But for an off-road tire, I thought, what the hell, I'll give it a try. The tire's still almost brand new. So I started proceeding with repairing. So I found my first pinch, and went in, used the tool, used the reaming tool, which I actually had to use a pry bar against the brake, or against the rim, to get it in. It was so hard to push in. I put the plug in and inflated it, and still had a leak. So because they're kind of a long cut, it's not just a hole, it's a pinch against the rim, so it's fairly long. I pulled the plug out, put another plug in with a tire with rubber cement on it, and it did manage to seal the hole with the rubber cement, and the other advantage was it was a lot easier to install the plug because the rubber cement acted as a lubricant. So I had one pinch on this side of the rim, this side of the tire, and 2 pinch flats on this side of the rim. So I had a total of 3 holes on the pin on the bead, plus I had the original puncture on the tire. So now I've got it holding air. There's a very slow leak. It'll leak down over 2 or 3 days, but from what I'm using it for, more than fine. I can go the entire day and not lose any pressure. So I'm going to run it. There's a race coming up, and I'm riding again tomorrow on some pretty rocky terrain. So I'll have a chance to see if those plugs are gonna stand up. Hoping they will, because if not, then I have to replace the tire. And as you can see by the knobs, the tire's still just about brand new. Okay, so this is after the ride. Took the bike out, did about a 4-hour ride, mixed terrain, high speed, rocks, water, logs, roots, all the gamut, and started off the ride with 12 pounds in the tire. So after it's about between inflating the tire, going out, bringing the bike back, unloading it, washing it, we're probably talking about 7 or 8 hours have passed since I started the ride. So let's see how we're doing for tire pressure. And looks like we're on about 10 psi. So in that period of time I've lost a couple psi on the tire, which to me is perfectly acceptable. Another thing I noticed as well is I should have trimmed the plugs, because they took a bit of a beating on going through some of the deep stuff with wheel spin and all caught up. So I'm going to take some side cutters and trim those and clean those up a bit. But other than that, it looks like the tire is at least going to be serviceable, at least until the next puncture. And hopefully that won't be the case. Usually, so far my experience has been I've had one puncture with all the riding I've done, so it doesn't seem to be a common occurrence. This tire is definitely softer on the sidewall, not nearly as tough a tire as the Maxxis Desert IT tire. Yeah. So next week is the race, and after the race, we'll know more about overall performance. But so far, indications are that you can repair a pinched sidewall in a tubeless without having to install a tube.